Yeah, I first wanted to just start by saying thank you to everybody that came out today. I really appreciate you helping to celebrate this occasion. And obviously I want to especially thank Jen and Ainsley and Clark and Nora. Anybody that knows me knows I wouldn't be much of use to anybody without them. So, thanks. Deputy Commodore Cronin, thank you so much for the keynote remarks, sir, and for presiding over the ceremony today. Very grateful. And to the maintenance team in the audience, I see you out there. It means a lot to me that you guys are here. And the Pathfinders that set this in motion, specifically Lieutenant Clemente, thank you for your efforts. I really appreciate it. And finally, to family and friends, I look forward to thanking each of you individually following the ceremony. But before all that, I've got a bit of a story for you. So my relief as Executive Officer, Lieutenant Commander Blomberg here, our very capable Master of Ceremonies today, he showed up a little bit earlier than expected. And knowing something about what a captain does and probably realizing he was getting a better XO out of the deal, Commander Hafer said, "Hey Matt, why don't you take a couple days off?" So I said, okay. Anybody that knows me knows that one of my specialties is vacationing. So we took, Jen and I loaded up the car and we grabbed Ainsley, Clark, and Nora, and we went to Yosemite National Park. And while I'm up here, I have to say, if you've never been to Yosemite National Park, you have to go. You walk into Yosemite National Park and it's like walking into another world. You see, giant pine trees, sequoia and redwood, so big you could drive a car straight through the middle of them. And they're all surrounded by this huge bowl of polished granite. And you look off to your right and you see something called Cathedral Rocks. And just beyond that is something called Glacier Point. And then off in the distance, you see this. It's just a mound of granite and it's cut right down the middle and it's appropriately named Half Dome. And then to your left, you're met with this, it's just a wall, just a solid wall of granite, all 3,000 feet or so of it just kind of erupting right up out of the soil. Years ago, the Native Americans, the Awanichi tribe, called it the Tocanula, and then some years later, the soldiers of the Mariposa Battalion started calling it El Capitan. So seeing as how I was about to be a captain, Jen said, "Hey, why don't we go down there and have a look?" So we did. And as embarrassing as this is to say out loud, I'm just cheesy enough to look at this wall and start comparing myself to it. I was thinking, what was it about this granite bluff that made those soldiers name it the Captain? I mean, of all the mountains in Yosemite, why would they call this one the Captain? And fortunately for me, I was able to piece together fairly quickly that it wasn't because it was the prettiest mountain. And it wasn't the tallest mountain either, which was good. And so far as I could tell, it wasn't the most forbidding or imposing or anything like that. It just kind of stood there. But it didn't take too long for us to figure it out, that where I was standing and where Jen was standing and where the girls were standing, a glacier once did. And through all manner of climatic hell, I mean sleet and freezing rain and wind and snow, that rocky bluff remained. And the whole scene, it just kind of reminded me of this really good book I once read called The Cruel Sea. And in it, they talk about the hallmarks of a good captain. And they say of a good captain, he's uncomplaining and wonderfully dependable. Uncomplaining and wonderfully dependable. And thinking about that ideal and then looking at this granite face, I think the soldiers got it about right. I share that story with you this morning because over the last year, and in fact, a different part of my career as a division officer, I had the chance to enjoy that kind of steady and reassuring leadership firsthand. The man I just relieved, Bill Hafer, he'll never tell you this, and I know that because this is the final remarks of the ceremony. He would never tell you this, but in nearly a quarter century of service, 25 years, the man has not one time, not one single time, taken a sick day. Anyone who knows anything at all about leadership, specifically leadership in conflict, knows that it's actually pretty easy work when the mission is newsworthy and you're kind of doing what you've been trained to do. You have your buddy Adrenaline kind of pumping alongside you to make up for any leadership shortcoming that you have. Much more difficult, much more difficult, when faced with a 2-year grind, preparing a ship that's been designed for war to reassume her rightful post. When faced with the sometimes boring, oftentimes tedious, but all the time absolutely necessary work, which is sighting in the rifle and sharpening the sword. there are not many officers with whom I've served who could effectively lead in those circumstances, and Bill, a man I'll be proud to call captain for as long as I'm around, is one of the elite few. In his own casual way, Bill told me earlier this week, he said, "Hey Matt, don't worry about the speech, man. 15 minutes from the time the ceremony ends, nobody's going to remember what we said anyhow." And I think he's probably right. But to you, sir, to you, Captain, I hope you remember. I hope you remember this day, and remember that I, personally and professionally, and your band of Pathfinders out there are truly grateful for your leadership. Pathfinders, up 10 up. And if everyone will please join me in 3 cheers for my good friend, Lieutenant Commander Bill Hafer. Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray! And now that our repair effort is coming to an end, we start writing an operational chapter for USS Scout. We're thankful for the continued support of Commodore Knudsen, Deputy Commodore Cronin, and their talented squadron staff. And we're thankful for the continued hard work of our maintenance team out there. I'll see you guys. And we are damn excited to sail once again alongside our sister ships, both Ardent and Champion. Here you go. And to the Pathfinders and Mighty Scout, and pay attention now. My first order of business as Commanding Officer, USS Scout, is to look you all in the eye and make you a promise. Same as the oath I took when I was commissioned some 11 years ago. To you, I promise to be respectful of your time. I'm not going to waste it. I promise to make sure that you're absolutely prepared when called upon, whether on this tour or the next or the one after that. And finally, I promise to be your captain. And in return, I need you to remain focused and mindful. Through tiresome watch, repetitive drill, dangerous work, and good old-fashioned grit, you're going to deliver your whole effort to the team. I expect you will be the captain of your day. I expect you will be the captain of your work ethic. And I expect you will be the captain of your own warrior ethos. You'll prepare us for an uncertain future by working tirelessly in the moment. You'll take the initiative and carry on what we've already started together. You'll continue to prove me right, that every sailor is indeed a captain.
Pathfinders! We lead the way!
XO, take charge and carry out the plan of the day.
Aye, sir. Will the guests please rise for the benediction and the rendering of honors?